In this video, we want to share with you how to have healthy disagreements without fighting, and how to use conflict to build up your relationships rather than tear them down.
We'll share the 5 steps to help you make this a reality. So stay with us.
Maureen and Ray Borzone specialize in freedom and wholeness coaching. Now they are sharing the most requested lessons from their powerful live classes with you. Join them as they lead you to inner freedom and relationship wholeness through the love and power of God.
Step 1 is redefining victory, going from opponents to teammates. This may seem counterintuitive. People come into conflict all the time thinking, I'm going to win, I'm right, and I'm going to convince them that I'm right. The fact is, you're both wrong in some way. I mean, there's the myth of 100% I'm right and you're wrong is really destructive. A disagreement is an opportunity to hear the other person and to learn their perspective.
Right. When you attempt to win in an argument, everybody's losing. There really is no winning. So I won the argument and you lost. When we're
The relationship loses.
Yeah.
You know, even if it doesn't have to be a spouse or a romantic relationship. It could be your neighbor that you live next to for the next 15 years. It could be a colleague that you have to work with and try to be effective with in your job. If your goal is to win and have them lose, then the relationship suffers and everybody suffers.
Yeah.
So who's the opponent then? The opponent is the issue. It's you and your teammate trying to resolve this issue, trying to tackle your opponent, which is this conflict that has come up.
And you know, when you're trying to win, is that you're in an argument. When you're in a disagreement, you're trying to win when you know you're simply thinking about what you're going to say next as the other person's talking. That's usually how it takes shape. Is going through your mind, I can refute it this way and this way and this way. You're not really listening, you know. And when you're not really listening to the other person, you're really shutting down your opportunity to learn something, to gain a perspective you maybe haven't considered. Right? And everybody loses that way.
So winning means coming to the best possible resolution for both parties and the relationship in general. So if you think of it in terms of a sports team, one teammate harming another teammate physically will make the whole team much weaker. It'll really reduce their chances of any kind of victory. And so that's what we do when we tear each other down, or when we don't listen and we try to get our point out there. The goal is to get all the information that you can possibly gather to make the best possible decision in the end.
That's right. Step number 2 is to determine if there's baggage attached to this disagreement, because there can be a lot of other things going on in the disagreement that are not really at the core and the center of what the discussion is about.
Right. Most people aren't aware of all that they're bringing into a disagreement, and so that's when tempers flare. That's when emotions run high, and they think, oh, if we're discussing whether or not you go bowling Tuesday night and I come in upset about it, bowling's not that emotional, really. It's usually something else that's going on. So if we detect emotions coming in, and we can feel justified in the emotions, but we haven't really thought it all through. So if we come in and emotions are high, that's a good indicator that there's something more going on than the actual issue at hand.
So, and so some examples of baggage might be a prior disagreement that hasn't been resolved, a prior conflict or resentment, right, that's present.
Or a pattern of disagreement.
There's a pattern of behavior here that, or maybe the tone of voice that someone is using in the disagreement. It's so, it can be so shocking, or so, grabs your attention in such a way that it's now becomes another issue in addition to whatever the conflict is why are you being this way? Why are you speaking to me that way?
Right, exactly. I hear the tone of voice and I feel disrespected without it even going through my mind. I'm not processing those thoughts, but I react emotionally and then I amp it up. And so now bowling has turned into, you're disrespecting me, you always react this way, here we go again, right? my expectations
Yeah,
of
that's right.
you. So that is bundling probably 4 or 5 different things, and there could be many more. And that is so common. People have no idea that that's going on, but that's what's causing us to miss each other. It was one of the things that's causing us to miss each other in this discussion. So if you sense that there's high emotion or building emotion, stop. If you want to be effective, stop and say, what else is going on here?
Yeah. Make a note of it, make a mental note of it. You know, at times it requires clarity on what it is you're feeling. You know, because if we're not used to it, if you're not used to identifying, putting words to your feelings, that can be part of the challenge here. It's, what am I actually feeling? Oh, I'm feeling disrespected, or I'm not feeling heard, or I'm feeling invalidated, or whatever it may be. We have a document called Putting Words to Your Feelings. We'll link it in the description. I think it'll be helpful for you as a way to get better and better at that.
Right.
Because you can really improve at becoming better at recognizing what it is you're feeling.
Right, exactly. We've had people that we've coached in our private practice who've come to us and said, I'm upset. I was upset. Well, what's upset? I mean, upset is so general. So once we began to explore that a little bit, I felt it could be I felt betrayed, I felt disrespected, I felt invalidated,
Yeah.
I felt unheard, I felt unappreciated. Those are all very different things, and each of those things individually would shed so much light to your partner so that you could actually resolve this issue. So step number 3 is to make your interactions safe. When you do this, you create an atmosphere where a person will actually share what's really on their hearts. They won't hold back. They'll be willing to listen to you.
Yeah. And this includes things like name calling. And that's kind of the basic, the simplest, the most
boy.
obvious. If you're involved in name calling in a disagreement, in a relationship.
That's immediately like,
Yeah, totally. That's right. Get ready to fight. And that just, you know, it just makes everything worse. It just ratchets up all the tension and all the anger. So we've been married 27 years, and we really have never engaged in name calling.
right. Well, when we were dating, that was like a ground rule.
Yeah.
I think that was your idea. That
And
was a good one.
Well, it's been a great help and a great way to have disagreements without them being escalated, but getting worse. I say this, not that we're superstars, but that you can do this. Anybody can do this. You just make an agreement.
Yeah.
That name calling is off the table because it does nothing, it actually harms, does nothing to help
Yeah, right.
other things.
Yeah, judgments. People feel entitled to judgments because they think it's just the facts. You're a jerk, or it's just the facts. You always want your own way.
Correct.
Right? That's assuming someone's motives. It is accusation and criticism attached to an assessment of the behavior, right? But even if you don't say your judgments, people can feel them. They leak.
They feel like facts, and they are speaking to a person's character, a person's true nature. You are just a selfish person.
Right.
You are whatever. That's not exactly name calling. You know, you're so selfish.
Right,
but that's
right.
into the judgments, and it's kind of similar. Have a similar sort of a style to it. And accusations can happen a lot in arguments or in disagreements, where you're saying, "Oh, you just want this," or "You just want that." Right? How easy it is to slip into that. They kind of flow out of the judgments that we make. We make accusations. We give voice to what we think is going on in a person's heart when we don't really know, unless a person tells us.
So when you feel certain of this thing, you can ask the person. Again, you're creating a safe environment. So when you said this, it sounded to me like you were saying this. Is that what you meant?
Right.
We do that sometimes. Okay, the way you reacted seemed like you were hearing me in a way that I didn't mean. Or if I heard something that sounded outrageous to me, I would then ask him, okay, so what did you mean by that? Before I react, just give them a chance to answer, because more often than not, there's a misunderstanding. And sometimes a person just needs to back up and say, you know what, I was way off base. I'm so sorry that I said that. I was crabby and I just reacted, and I'm trying to learn to not do that anymore.
Yeah.
Giving each other space to, first of all, clarify if you're incorrect in the way that you're reading them, and then also giving them room to make up for their mistake if they said something.
Well, and
offensive.
that's such an important tip. And the tip is to use the technique of saying, it sounds like you're saying this.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, so you, right? Then
Right.
you can accuse or you can deliberately, misrepresent. It sounds like you're saying this. Is that right? Is a real helpful way to bring clarity without accusing and without making the problem worse.
Yeah,
and I
so
think
important.
the opposite of that is when we misrepresent, right? I want to get together with my friends this weekend and you're upset about it. And you say, so all you ever want to do is get together with your friends and never with me, right? You're misrepresenting what I'm saying.
Right.
Or it could be in any direction. I may do the same thing with you, not that we do this, but that can easily be done. Oh, so you just want, we
Well, then
make
you
it into
get-
something it's not.
So making your environment safe, the atmosphere safe, by listening, by clarifying, by keeping your tone down and not escalating. If somebody says something offensive to me, I have several minutes to take that in before I actually have to respond. I can listen to that. I can ask a question. I don't have to. Maturity, really, emotional maturity is what I do with that distance between what comes at me and what comes out of me.
That's right.
And so if I have control over that distance, over how I respond before my emotions come out, that's growth. That's emotional maturity, and it's really, really important for these interactions. So I can take something in, it can seem a certain way to me, but I can question it, and then I can
Right.
clarify.
The difference between the reaction you get and the response you give. There's a difference and there's that distance.
Yeah.
Here's my initial reaction is I feel this, the anger, whatever it might be rising in me, but that's not my response. I get to think about it and process it and decide on what I think is the right response, not the right insult.
Right,
but
not the right
response.
insult.
Right. Step number 4 is consider the values that are represented. Why does this conflict matter to each of you?
What this does is it shows you why you're missing each other. There are hidden values in everything that we're saying. If we can approach this with a neutral curiosity, saying, okay, what does this mean to me, really, instead of defending my right to have him home? And the same thing with him wanting to go out. Does he feel an obligation to this particular group of friends? Does he need time outside the house? What is it, right? Because each of those things will have its own solution. So if we can get all of this out on the table, we're much more likely to be able to come up with creative solutions to our problem that could be a win-win.
And this is really, it's what is the value represented by the other person, but also what does this mean to me? Why is this making me mad? Why am I upset? What am I feeling? It kind of gets back to that and understanding what it is personally that is the meaning and the reason why this has such weight that we're arguing about it.
And it really begins to represent a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the solution, rather than the right thing. Like my idea, the right thing is that he doesn't go out. His idea, the right thing is that he does go out. Really, what we're trying to do is approach it with a neutral curiosity that says, what is it that you need? What is it that I need? And how can we come to some really great solutions that serve both of us and serve the whole family?
Yeah.
Step 5 is draw conclusions together. This represents the real win. When you can look at everything you've gathered because you've listened to each other, you've allowed yourself to be vulnerable by stating what it all means to you, you've allowed your perspective to be impacted by the other person and what things matter to them. Now you have everything out on the table, and together you can draw the best conclusions.
What a difference, right, between that and whoever is louder, whoever persists more, whoever insists on their own way, wins the argument or the disagreement. What a difference, right, to then finally to draw this conclusion together, to work together, like we talked about, as a team against the issue that you're facing.
Yeah. And then you walk away from this, and you'll never take this and throw it in the face of your partner in the next disagreement, right? This was a real win. This builds the relationship and kind of strengthens you to go forward to the next healthy disagreement.
Yeah. And I think as we move toward the end of this video, important to mention just humility and being able to
so
receive instruction, to recognize I don't always do it right, right? I make mistakes, I say things I shouldn't, and I don't know everything, right? To have that attitude, that kind of humility, to be able to receive correction.
Yeah. To enter into a disagreement saying, this is what I think, but I'm not sure if it's right. Let's
That's right.
talk about it and find truth and find the best solution for our relationship, whether it's a coworker, a neighbor, a spouse, or anybody that you have a valid relationship with.
So we should tell our friend about some other videos. So we have a video on the right and wrong ways to apologize. Might be helpful for you. And you might also consider our videos on the topic of forgiveness. Very helpful, because in any relationship, Maureen, we talk about this all the time with the people we coach. If there's resentment, if there's bitterness from some prior exchange or experience, that really gets in the way of healing and having conflicts and disagreements that don't turn into fights. It's such an important thing.
Well, it's part of the baggage in step 2 that we mentioned that would help you just clean up the argument to make it that isolated issue. And forgiveness and apologies are a huge part of that.
Yeah. So we're Maureen and Ray Borzone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.